The clock read to 37 in the morning. The hospital was almost empty. Long, white, silent corridors. From room 307 came only the constant sound of the heart monitor. Renata was awake, eyes open, fixed on the ceiling. His body ached, but what really hurt was the silence. The silence beside the bed, where she believed her daughter would have been. The doctor had said the day before, "We're going to keep her under observation. She needs someone nearby for the next 48 hours. And her daughter Carolina responded hurriedly, "Sure, doctor, I'll stay." But it didn't stay. Renata remembered the scene clearly. The hurried hug, the kiss on the forehead, the promise in the air. "Mom, I'm just going home to take a shower, and I'll be back." And he never came back. On the table beside his bed, a half-empty glass of water and a wilted flower, a gift from a nurse, to try to ease the emptiness. Renata looked at her and thought, even flowers need care. Why is it so easy to forget those who have cared for us our entire lives? The monitor beeped louder, as if the heart reacted to the thought. Renata closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The tears came without a sound. They ran slowly down onto the pillow. She tried to contain it, but her chest tightened. A nurse came in. "Is everything okay, Mrs. Renata?" She forced a smile. "Yes, dear," but the voice said otherwise. When the nurse left, Renata looked back at the door. He expected to hear footsteps, see his daughter's shadow, the sound of heels in the hallway. But time passed, and the only company was the sound of his own breathing. It's strange how life changes in an instant. Yesterday, I was the one taking care of it. Today, I am the one who was left behind. The monitor's beeping blends with the narration. This is the story of a woman who dedicated her entire life to love. But when he needed it most, love just didn't show up. Renata was born in a small town in the interior of Parana, daughter of a teacher and a bricklayer. She grew up surrounded by simple people, but with big hearts. She was always the type to take care of everyone, her friends, her siblings, her neighbors, and perhaps that was what defined her entire life. She never knew how to exist without caring for someone. She married Roberto at 21, a charismatic but immature man. The marriage didn't last long enough to bring into the world the greatest reason for her life, Carolina, her daughter. Renata used to say, "Of everything I lost, you were the best thing I gained." When Roberto left, Carolina was still in diapers. He left no pension, no address, no memento. Renata had to make do. She worked as a pharmacy assistant, then as a clinic receptionist, then as a cleaning lady. Whatever came her way, she did. The important thing was to ensure that her daughter had enough to eat, wear, and dream about. There were days of disguised hunger, she said. Mother doesn't feel hunger, she feels worry. And she shared what little she had, always laughing so as not to scare the little girl. Carolina grew up watching her mother work late, take the crowded bus, and come home tired but smiling. On birthdays, even without money, Renata decorated the room with balloons, baked a simple cake, and made a point of singing happy birthday while looking into her daughter's eyes. "Promise me you'll be happy, my love," he said every time. "I promise, Mom," and Renata believed it, because every sacrifice was worth it, if her daughter could have a better life. The years passed, and Carolina became a studious young woman, full of ambition, got a scholarship to college in another city. Renata, proud and sad at the same time, helped with everything: bags, documents, even the note with prayers inside the bag. "To protect you when I can't be there." On the day of their farewell, Carolina cried, "I'll be back, Mom, I promise." And Renata replied, smiling, "A well-raised son always returns." But time began to change that promise. Distance has become routine. Connections became rare. Then came the short messages, the "I'm busy, Mom," the "I'll call you later." Renata got used to waiting. She learned to live with her phone on silent and her heart full. When Carolina graduated, Renata planned a simple party, bought flowers, and waited for her daughter to celebrate. But she didn't show up. He called, saying, "Mom, I can't go. I'm tired. I had to travel with my work friends." Renata replied in the same sweet tone as always, "It's okay, my love. The important thing is that you're okay." But when she hung up, she cried softly, sitting at the table, looking at the leftover sweets. Even so, she never complained. "I believed that distance was part of modern life. A child who has the world in front of him sometimes forgets who's behind him," she would say to herself. When she turned 45, her body began to take its toll. Back pain became constant. Nausea is frequent. Until one day, at work, he fainted. He woke up in the hospital. The diagnosis was straightforward: physical and emotional exhaustion, severe anemia, high blood pressure, and the onset of depression. The doctor was clear: you need to rest, and you need someone to accompany you. Renata laughed awkwardly. The only person I have is my daughter. Then call her. It will be important for your recovery, she called. Carolina went. She arrived in a hurry, her cell phone in her hand, her expression tense. Mom, I'm here, okay? But I'll have to sort out some things over the phone. Even so, Renata was moved. Just seeing you makes me feel better, my daughter. Mom, don't say that. You'll get better soon, I promise. But deep down, the distance wasn't just geographic, it was emotional. Carolina was there out of obligation, not love, and Renata felt it. He felt it in the silences, in the glances at the clock, in the short answers, but he preferred to say nothing. Because, in a mother's heart, the fear of being separated is always greater than the desire to be understood. 2 days later, when the doctor recommended observation, Carolina gave that automatic smile and said, "Sure, doctor, I'll stay," but he didn't. And so it was between hurried promises and the sound of the door closing that the love of a lifetime turned into an empty room. She never wanted anything grand. I just wanted to be remembered when I needed it most. The alarm clock rang every day at 5:20 in the morning. Renata woke up before the city. The body is tired, but the mind is already switched on. While the coffee brewed, she put on the laundry, swept the floor, and sorted out the stale bread for toasting. She worked as an administrative assistant at a small private school. She was loved by everyone, the woman who solved everything, always smiling, always willing. Renata is made of iron, her colleagues said. She smiled, but knew that iron rusts too. Before leaving, she put on a light lipstick and looked at her reflection in the kitchen mirror. "Come on, warrior," she said to herself. It was the way he found to remind himself that he still existed beyond the tiredness. He took the crowded bus, always with the same kindness, giving up his seat, helping the elderly, thanking the driver. She was the kind of person the world grew accustomed to not noticing, because she seemed to handle everything. She'd arrive at work, turn on her computer, and dive into paperwork, spreadsheets, and emails. Even when the body asked for a break, the smile came automatically. "Is everything okay, Renata?" "Yes, just a little sleep lie." It wasn't sleep, it was exhaustion. But she said it's okay because that's what the world expected to hear. At lunch, she ate quickly to take care of other people's problems. I helped the teachers, calmed the students' parents, took messages. Sometimes I would sit at the cafeteria table, stare into space, and think, when did I start living just to function? At night, I would return home with heavy legs. His body ached, his shoulders stiffened, his eyes burned. But even so, I stopped by the market to buy something for my daughter. Carolina almost never showed up, but Renata kept buying her favorite things. What if she shows up unexpectedly? He thought, smiling. At home, he turned on the television to hear voices, even without paying attention. She ate dinner alone, set the table as if she had company, and slept late. Before going to bed, I checked my cell phone. No new messages, but I would send one anyway. "Good night, daughter. May God bless you." I almost never got a reply. But she continued, because love, for her, has always been this, doing, even when it's just you trying. On Saturday mornings, she liked to walk to the market. I greeted everyone, bought flowers for the house. "Flowers are my luxury," he said, laughing. Even alone, she made a full lunch. "Life is my visit." But in the last few months, something has changed. My legs began to weaken, and my vision darkened at times. Headaches became more frequent. At work, colleagues noticed, "Renata, you look pale." "It's just pressure. Nothing serious." One day, while typing, he felt his hands tingling. The air was lacking. Cold sweat. Everything spun. He woke up on the floor, with people around him. "Calm down, Renata. We've already called some." At the hospital, she heard the doctor's voice, as if she were hearing it from afar. "She is physically exhausted and severely anemic. She needs rest and supervision." Renata tried to laugh. "Rest? Who will do my things?" The doctor was firm. "Either you stop now, or the body will stop for you." It was the first time she felt fear. But the greatest fear was not of illness, it was of loneliness. Who would take care of her if she needed it? When the doctor asked if she had anyone to accompany her, she answered without thinking, "Yes, I do, my daughter. And he smiled. But the smile hid a truth that the heart already knew. Her daughter was no longer the girl who promised to come running back to her arms. Carolina appeared late in the afternoon. In a hurry, her cell phone in her hand. Mom, what happened? I'm in the middle of a project, but I came to see you. Renata smiled, trying to hide her tiredness. Nothing, my love. It's a silly thing. The doctor only wants me to stay here for a few days. A few days. Oh, Mom, I have so much stuff right now. I know, daughter. But it's just to observe. The girl took a deep breath. Okay, I'll stay today, but I need to leave early tomorrow. Okay, dear. Renata held her daughter's hand. Don't worry. Just seeing you here makes me feel better. But inside, she felt a different kind of cold, the cold of someone who knows that love is only there out of obligation. That night, as Carolina slept sitting in the armchair, Renata looked at her and thought, did I ever make a mistake in loving? And he cried softly, so as not to wake anyone. The next morning, when he woke up, the room was empty. On the table was a short note. I went home to take a shower. I'll be back soon. I love you, Mom. She tucked the note into her pillow. I'll be back soon, he repeated mentally, but I knew that perhaps that soon would never come. And it was at this point in life, between love and oblivion, that fate prepared the blow that would change everything. Sometimes the body gets sick to say what the heart no longer has the strength to shout. I need care too. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the hallway. Renata looked at the door anxiously. Every time I heard the creak of a gurney, the rattle of a cart, the opening of a door, my heart raced high, expected to see Carolina enter with a smile, maybe with flowers, maybe with a sorry I'm late, Mom. But no one came in. It had been 3 days since the I'll be right back, 3 days since the note, 3 days since the last hug. The nurse, named Claudia, came in every now and then to change the IV, check the blood pressure, and try to hide her look of pity. Is everything okay, Mrs. Renata? Yes, my daughter. He was lying, as always. On the first day, she still believed him. I thought, something must have happened. She's going to show up. In the second, he began to worry. On the third, she understood. Love can also grow weary, not hers, but others. She looked at her watch again. For 20 p.m. the sun came in weakly through the window, reflecting on the white wall. The smell of alcohol and medicine filled the air. She felt loneliness as a physical presence. It was as if the room had grown larger, the silence louder. He picked up his cell phone from the table. No message. He opened WhatsApp, his daughter's name pinned at the top. Last conversation. Hi Mom, I'm leaving. I'll be back later. Last viewed 2 days ago. Renata typed, is everything okay, daughter? I miss you. It's gone. Typed again. When are you coming to see me? It went out again. In the end, he just wrote, I love you, and sent it. The blue tick appeared, but the answer did not come. The tears came silently, not out of anger, but out of injustice. Not understanding how someone who received so much love could return it with oblivion. She remembered the feverish nights when Carolina was still little, and she would sleep sitting up, holding the girl's hand. She remembered the days when the gas had run out, and she pretended not to be hungry so she would have food left over. She remembered the times she prayed for God to give her strength just to see her daughter win. And now, there, her heart asked, did she forget all that? Claudia entered the room again. Donna, Renata, did you eat lunch? I wasn't hungry. Do you want me to heat up some tea? No need, dear. She'll be here soon. The nurse hesitated. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. He walked out slowly, closing the door. The clock read 6:12 p.m. Dinner arrived. A thin broth, 2 biscuits, an apple. Renata looked at the plates, sighed, and turned her face away. His body was weak, his heart was tired. Outside, he heard laughter from other families visiting their relatives, parents welcoming children, wives arriving with flowers, grandchildren running through the hallways. And there she was, alone, with the sound of the monitor marking the rhythm of abandonment. She picked up the wilted flower from the table and turned it over between her fingers. A petal fell. Even you couldn't handle it, could you? He murmured, with a sad smile. Suddenly, his cell phone vibrated. The heart raced. It was Carolina. Renata rushed to answer. Hi Mom, sorry, I couldn't make it these days. I've been so busy. How are you? The voice was distant, hurried. Renata tried to sound light. I'm fine, daughter. I missed you. Oh Mom, me too. Work's been really busy, but I'll come by tomorrow, okay? I swear, it is fine, my love. I love you. Okay, I love you too. He hung up. He looked at his cell phone and muttered, "You don't know how much." Night came slowly. Renata tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Every noise in the hallway made her look at the door, but she didn't come. The next morning, she woke to the sound of the stretcher's wheels being pushed. The nurse brought the coffee. "Do you need help sitting down?" "No, thank you." His hands were shaking as he held the cup. He drank the cold coffee, looking at the door. In the afternoon, the doctor came in. "Mrs. Renata, your exams have improved a little, but you still need someone to accompany you. Where is your daughter?" She took a deep breath. "It's coming, doctor." "How many days ago?" 3. His gaze softened. "Do you want us to call her?" Renata smiled, even with tears in her eyes. "No need. Mother doesn't need to call. Love comes on its own." But this time, love didn't come. When the clock struck 9:47 p.m., she gave up waiting. He rested his head on the pillow, his body tired, his eyes closed. A tear slowly ran down, and she whispered, almost voiceless, "Daughter, I'm still here." The monitor beeped louder. The breath became short. The nurse ran and called for help. The doctor came in, set up the equipment, and gave quick instructions. But Renata opened her eyes and whispered, "It's not the body that hurts." Dr. Ritz the silence. The heartbeat stabilized. Claudia stood beside the bed, holding her hand. "Stay calm. Okay, you'll get through this." Renata looked at her and asked, "Do you have a mother, dear?" "I have." "Then don't let her wait." And she closed her eyes. The nurse wept softly. That morning, the hospital fell silent. Renata slept, but not restfully. He slept in sadness, with his body alive and his heart tired. A mother's love is the only one that doesn't require presence. But that's what you miss most when no one shows up. The sun barely came in through the window. It was the 4th day without a visit. The flower was gone. The nurse had discreetly thrown it away the night before. Renata woke up with a metallic taste in her mouth and a fatigue that seemed to overwhelm her body. He looked at the ceiling, then at the door. Nothing. There was no note, no message, no familiar voice, just the low hum of machines. Claudia, the nurse, came in. He had a look of care that seemed like pity. "Good morning, Mrs. Renata. Did you sleep well?" "I slept enough to forget that time exists." Claudia smiled sadly. "Want to try something to eat?" Renata shook her head. "The body is here, but the rest were waiting outside." She turned her face to the wall. Claudia sighed, adjusted the floor, and left. Alone, Renata closed her eyes and tried to remember the last time she felt cared for. It was a long time ago, perhaps, when her mother was still alive. Since then, she had always been the one taking care of him. And suddenly, she realized she didn't know how to be cared for. Deep down, it wasn't just her daughter's abandonment. It was the accumulation of a lifetime with no space for itself. In the afternoon, a hospital volunteer went around the rooms handing out magazines. When he reached hers, he smiled. "Want to read something?" Renata accepted. He leafed through it without focus. He stopped on a page with a highlighted sentence. "Sometimes, the love we lack from others is the same love we forget to give ourselves." He read it once, twice, 3 times. The phrase stuck in my mind, but she didn't know what to do with it. She picked up her cell phone. Nothing. The last "I love you" was still unanswered. He deleted the chat history not out of anger, but to try to make it hurt less. He turned on the TV in his room. A variety show talked about Family Day. The images showed children hugging mothers, laughter, flowers. Renata lowered the volume. The sound of it hurt more than the silence. When night fell, the doctor came in with the medical records. "You responded well to the medication. We can discharge you tomorrow, if you prefer." "Hi, to where?" He looked at her, confused. "Home. Home." Renata laughed softly, bitterly. "Home is where someone is waiting for you. Doctor, I only have an address." He was silent for a moment. "Do you want the social worker to call your daughter?" "No, I don't want anyone to call me out of obligation. Whoever loves, comes." He gave a slight wave and left. Renata stood there, staring into space. She felt transparent, as if the whole world passed her by without her noticing. In the early morning, she woke to the sound of rain. The sound of drops on the glass resembled light knocks, as if someone were asking to come in. For a moment, he thought it was Carolina. He got up slowly, his body aching, and looked at the door, but no one. He leaned his forehead against the cold window and cried. He cried without strength, without a scream, without hope. It was a silent cry, the kind of tear that seeks no solace, only release. When the crying stopped, he looked at his own reflection in the glass. The disheveled hair, the deep dark circles, the empty look. He barely recognized himself. "That's what's left when we live only for others," he murmured. The next morning, the nurse brought coffee and the envelope with the medical discharge, ready to go home. Renata took a deep breath, not ready, but the world doesn't wait. He signed the papers and slowly changed his clothes. Every movement seemed to carry an invisible weight. At the hospital door, the rain had stopped. He hailed a taxi, sat in the back seat, and looked out the window. The city was still alive. People laughing, horns honking, hurried footsteps. And there she was, with a plastic bag on her lap and her chest full of emptiness. The driver, trying to be kind, asked, "How are you, miss?" Renata replied, looking at the reflection in the glass, "It depends on what being well means." He didn't insist. At home, the silence was even louder. He opened the door slowly. The smell of mold and medicine mixed with that of loneliness. He sat up in bed and looked around. On the dresser, the photo of his daughter's graduation. She picked up the picture frame, ran her finger over the glass, and whispered, "Will you ever understand?" The body trembled. He lay down, hugged his pillow, and slept for hours, the deep sleep of someone who no longer dreams. When he woke, the sun was already setting. Made coffee. She took it alone. Then he lit a candle and placed it next to the window. It was a way of saying to the world, "I'm still here." When absence repeats itself for too long, the soul learns to be silent. Renata stopped waiting for the phone to ring, and, without realizing it, he began to expect something else, a reason to continue. 3 months have passed since the day Renata left the hospital. In the beginning, the days were the same: coffee, silence, suppressed crying. But little by little, something inside her began to move. The loneliness, which had previously been a wound, began to become space where she could hear herself. She began walking slowly every morning through the nearby streets. In the first week, he almost gave up. His legs hurt, his body felt heavy. But the fresh air, the smell of baking bread, the sound of birds, all of it reminded him that life was still happening. In his second month, he enrolled in a free painting class at the community center. The teacher, Donna Nelly, a 70-year-old woman, always said, "Ink heals what the heart cannot say." Renata laughed, but she knew it was true. She painted flowers, seas, open windows, and, without realizing it, she began to paint herself, to reconstructing her own contours. Sometimes she still thought about her daughter, of course, but not with the same pain anymore. Now there was a mixture of longing and understanding. "She still doesn't know what it's like to be alone," he thought. "One day you'll understand." One Sunday, the phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, without rushing. "Hello." On the other side, a trembling voice. Mother Renata was silent for a few seconds. His heart raced, but his voice was calm. "Hi, daughter. Mom, I need to see you." He took a deep breath. "Okay, come, Mother." Renata was sitting at the table, with a cup of coffee in her hands. "Sit down, daughter." Carolina obeyed, looking down. The silence was heavy, but not hostile. For a few seconds, only the sound of the clock could be heard, until the daughter started crying. "Mom, I was wrong. I didn't know how to see you. I ran away from everything, even from myself." Renata remained silent. There was no anger, no rush to forgive, just serenity. "Are you okay, daughter?" "No, work consumed me. I got sick too. And in the middle of all this, I realized that I left you alone. When I needed love the most, I thought of you. And I realized that I left you when it was your turn to need me." Renata took a deep breath, her eyes welling up. "Love is like that, Carolina. Sometimes we love so much that we forget to teach the other person how to stay. But you came back, and that is already an answer to many prayers." The daughter lifted her face, crying, "Do you forgive me?" Renata held out her hand. "Daughter, forgiveness already existed even before repentance. But I want you to understand one thing. I didn't come back to life waiting for you. I started living for myself again. And now, if you want to walk with me, it's because you choose to, not because you have to." Carolina held her mother's hand tightly. "I want to, Mom. This time, I want to learn how to take care of you." Renata smiled, a full, deep smile that came from within. "So start by taking care of yourself, so that when I'm not here, you won't get lost again." The two hugged each other, crying, laughing. in a mixture of guilt and relief. The hug lasted the entire time it took to forgive. In the following days, their routine changed. Carolina began to visit her frequently. They cooked together, walked in the park. But Renata now had a new glow. She didn't wait any longer to live. She started selling the paintings she painted. Some neighbors bought it, others ordered it. In one of them, he painted a woman in front of the sea, with open arms. She called the painting Alta. One afternoon, Carolina looked at the painting and asked, "Why that name?" Renata replied, smiling, "Because the day I left the hospital was the day I was discharged from pain too." They both laughed, and in that laughter, there was peace. Renata stops for a moment, looks at the sky and says, "You know, daughter, I thought my life was over the day you left me in that hospital, but I was wrong." That's where she started. Carolina holds her mother's hand. "Why did it start?" Renata looks at the horizon. "Because it was there that I discovered that the strongest love is the one that doesn't need a witness to exist." They continue walking, the sun disappearing behind the trees. The camera moves up, and the narration closes. Renata didn't overcome abandonment. She overcame the silence that came after. And when she learned to listen to herself, the world called her again. It was a sunny Sunday. Renata woke up early, as always, but her body moved differently now, without haste, without guilt. He opened the window and let the wind in. The curtains swayed, light flooded the room, and she smiled. Coffee steamed on the table. On the notebook, a draft of a new painting, a long road, surrounded by sunflowers. In the caption he wrote, "Wherever life takes me, may it be with light." He drank his coffee slowly, observing the street. Children played, a dog barked, neighbors greeted each other. Life went on, and she was a part of it again. Since her reunion with Carolina, a lot had changed. The daughter, now more present, still carried the guilt of abandonment, but Renata didn't dwell on the past. She learned to look forward, without denying what she experienced. Carolina sometimes insisted, "Mom, I still feel bad about what I did," and Renata always responded calmly, "Daughter, guilt doesn't build a future, love does." And that's exactly what they did, rebuilding their love, one day at a time. Renata continued attending painting classes. Now she gave voluntary classes to other women in the neighborhood, widowed, separated, forgotten. At each meeting, a different story of pain, but the same tired look. She always said, "We get sick when we forget to exist for ourselves. Art cured me. Who knows, maybe it will cure you too." They painted together, laughed, cried. And, amidst brushes and paints, something stronger than therapy was born: belonging. Renata became an inspiration, not because of the pretty phrases, but because of the way he looked at life, with tenderness, but also with limits. One Saturday afternoon, Carolina arrived with a surprise. "Mom, remember your paintings? They're going to have a small exhibition at the cultural center." They loved them. Renata was in shock. "My paintings? You're kidding." "I'm serious. They say your paintings have a soul." On the day of the exhibition, she arrived dressed in white, her hair loose, her eyes shining. People praised the colors, the shapes, the messages, but the painting that caught the most attention was the one called Alta, the woman before the sea. A lady approached and asked, "Are you the artist?" Renata smiled. "I am. That woman there is me, the day I learned to stand up without help." The woman became emotional. "It's beautiful. It feels like freedom." "That's right," Renata replied. "Freedom." Carolina, watching from afar, wept with pride, regret, and gratitude. After the exhibition, they returned home together. On the way, Carolina said, "Mom, sometimes I'm still afraid of losing you." Renata looked ahead, serene. "Daughter, those who find themselves again are never lost again. We only get lost when we stop looking at ourselves." Silence. But that kind of silence that comforts. At home, they had dinner together, laughed, and talked about plans. Renata commented, "I thought about opening an art workshop here in the classroom, teaching painting, embroidery, whatever I know. I fully support this, Mom, and I can help spread the word." She smiled, touching her daughter's hand. "See, now you're the one supporting me." And they laughed together, with the lightness of those who have learned that forgiveness and love, when genuine, don't need speeches. That night, before going to sleep, Renata wrote in her notebook, "The pain was the beginning, abandonment was the way, but self-love was the cure." He closed the notebook, turned off the light, and stared at the ceiling. The silence now didn't hurt, It was rest. She took a deep breath, smiled, and whispered, "Thank you, life, for teaching me to come back to myself." Renata discovered that liberation does not come when others return, it comes when you come to your senses. And, in that reunion with her own essence, she realized, to love is not to lose yourself, it is to multiply yourself. The sun was slowly setting, coloring the sky with orange and golden hues. Renata walked slowly, her step firm, her face serene. There was no rush. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't going to anyone, she was going to herself. The wind ruffled her hair, and the distant sound of children playing echoed a kind of simple joy she thought she'd never feel again. On the park bench, she sat down, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. The narration enters, softly, as if coming from within her. It took a while, but I learned. Not every lost love is a tragedy. Some are just paths for us to find each other again. Renata opens her eyes, watches the leaves falling from the trees, the sky changing color, and smiles. One day, I cried because I was alone. Today, I'm grateful that you've learned to keep me company. She takes a small, blue-covered notebook out of her pocket, the same one she wrote in during her recovery. On the last page, she writes, "Being left hurt, but leaving me would have hurt more." He closes the notebook, rests it on his lap, and looks at the horizon. The camera slowly zooms in. "I thought that love was never giving up on the one we love. Now I know that the most beautiful love is the one we choose to continue, even after being forgotten." Pause. The wind sways the leaves. She smiles. How many times have you also waited for someone to come back? How many times did you look at your phone, at the gate, at the road, and nothing happened? Maybe your story is similar to Renata's. Maybe it wasn't in the hospital, but it was somewhere else. In a silence, in a goodbye, in an absence that became bigger than the house. What if I told you that the love you gave was not in vain, that he just needs to come back, not to the one who left you, but for those who always stayed, you, because when we stop waiting for people to come and take care of us, begins to take care of itself, and that is when the heart understands what peace is. She passes by a pool of water, observes the reflection and says, in a low voice, "I'm here." This was the story of a woman who was left in the hospital, but in the end, she was the one who got cured. And you, have you forgiven yourself for waiting too long? If this story touched you, leave a comment. Tell me, at what point in your life did you also have to stand up for yourself? Because sometimes, your story is the strength someone needs to keep going. Renata walks to the park exit. Your story could be the hug someone else needs today. And if you believe that stories like this deserve to be told, like this video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to the channel. Each week, we tell real, moving stories that remind us of what time sometimes tries to make us forget that love, even when hurt, can still heal. The sky is pink, the sun disappearing behind the trees. She turns, looks back, smiles a slight, definitive smile. In the end, this is what life is. Some leave, others stay. But love always finds its way back.